I wrote constantly when I was younger. I wrote stories all the time. I created narratives all the time. I remember, I don't think you get them now, but on the back of cereal packets like Sugar Puffs, you used to get little scenes from Batman or Stingray or whatever like that, and inside you would find some transfers that you would sort of rub onto the scene so the characters were put in the scene. So I would do that and then write a story about it. So yeah, I wrote stories all the time, particularly through the final year of secondary school, when that was the first time really that creative writing became a core part of what we did. Until that point it had been dipping in and dipping out, but at that point we were actually encouraged to be creative and to write as much as possible. So yeah, I did write a lot when I was younger. It's easy to lose that, and what I would say to young people now is young people who are approaching the end of their secondary schooling, is to make sure that you don't lose that. You're going to perhaps be going, well, you're going to hopefully be going on to get a job or into university or college or whatever, and you're going to find all sorts of demands. You're going to get married, you're going to have children, blah, blah, blah. So huge demands are going to be made on you. But always try, if you want to write, always try and preserve that. I found during my 20s, there was a break of about 10 years where I didn't write. And it was very, very difficult to pick it up again. And I think I lost a lot of time. I lost a lot of my writing life during that. That came about because I listened to advice. As I said, I wrote a lot during my final year in secondary school. And when I went to university, my first year at university, I took a big sheaf of my writings along to the writer in residence at the university I was working at. And that's just a writer who is there to give advice to students on their creative writing. And my writing was okay. I did very well in my secondary school. I got an A for my SYS English. So I went along pretty confident. And his reaction was muted, to say the least, because I had allowed my imagination to go wild and write all sorts of things, write little parables and fantasies and little descriptive pieces and playing about with language in all sorts of ways. And his reaction was, well, I can see some little bits here, that sentence is good, that little bit's good, but really you need to write about what you know about. And I think that's a bit of advice that young people get all the time, young writers get all the time. Write about what you know about. And I think there's a big element of truth in that, but don't be put off by that advice. Don't think that you can't write anything that isn't directly related to you. Because at the time, at the age of 17, not a great deal had happened to me that was all that interesting. And there were some things I could have written about, but I wasn't really mature enough yet to write about them. And it would have been good to spend another couple of years just finding my feet before I took a step into the things that I felt I really knew about. And I needed to find out a lot more too, a lot more about life. So don't be put off by people saying that you shouldn't write this or you should write that or whatever. Don't be disheartened by negative feedback. That's all part of the writing process. So yeah, as a child, lots and lots of writing, and then a big spell where unfortunately I listened to advice and didn't write. Looking back on, I think like many writers, I look back and see some things that I'm very proud of, and some things which aren't so good. It's the same with any writer. You can't consistently be brilliant. I'd be happy if I was brilliant once, but that's another story. There's there are pieces of work that I think are as good as I could have done. I mentioned a story which was made into a short film, a story called The Practicality of Magnolia, which I'm very proud of, because I think it is just a very, very neatly constructed story with some really good characters. I like some of the work where I've tried to do things with language, such as the story of business I mentioned that doesn't have any punctuation, or some work that I've done in Scots. I've written in Glaswegian Scots a lot, and I think they capture voices pretty well. But certainly, I would say to any writer, be prepared to change too. Looking back on the stuff I wrote 10, 12 years ago, it's very, very different from the material I write now. I've got a much different approach to the kinds of topics I want to write about. I suppose I'm less edgy and less angry now than I was when I was a younger man. So I look back on that as being someone very different, another person, a different writer. I've enjoyed, more and more I'm beginning to enjoy different kinds of genre. I'm beginning to write poetry, which I've never written before. I've certainly enjoyed my experiences with script writing. So I think as you become a little bit more confident, or as you become a little bit more comfortable with putting your thoughts on paper, your words on paper, you begin to try out other things. So yeah, that's basically how I feel about my writing. That I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago, and you will write different things the more experiences you get and the more comfortable you become with expressing your own feelings on paper.